Jaya Rama Krishna Bhuvana Mangala Jaya Mata Shama Sutta Ati Niramala Jaya Vivekananda Paramadayala Prabhu Ramana Shashuta Jaya Shri Raka
Om Sahana Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishovahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman protect us, may Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings, and may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, and may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. Welcome back to the second half of our class in the Vedanta tradition, which, as we've said before, really includes yoga, Samkhya, and Tantra, Buddhism, basically all of these Indian darshanas, or clear ways of seeing, which clarify our mind. Many of us are running to the Eastern traditions because they are the wisdom traditions. And generally speaking, the Western traditions have all come from the East too. The sun rises in the East and sets in the West, as Vivekananda used to say. So he's hoping that we will take these wisdom traditions and bring them into the Western firmament. Basically, firmament means our minds, because nature is the same everywhere. As Sri Ramakrishna used to say, you'll go from one side of India to the other side of India and you'll see the same tree growing there. So it's in the firmament of our mind that we want to plant these wisdom traditions, teachings. And therefore we'll find that those Oriental teachings that came from Christ and Moses and other beings are very pertinent to us today, here and now, in time. The wisdom particle is just another way of presenting that to interest the Westerners, because basically we are at a sort of intellectual level in our thinking process, in the, if you forgive the expression, the evolution of our minds at this point. Mm-hmm. And we are ready to hear these teachings, hopefully through live streaming and other great instruments and mechanisms. Technology can be used in such a way that is going to benefit us in that matter and introduce us to these great ideas, and more than just ideas, these axioms or these maxims of existence, declarations, like we chanted Vedanta Siddhanta Nirukta. It is the final conclusion of the Vedanta that all this is Brahman. And if you didn't study it long enough, you'd think, if you just started out with Vivarta, that all of this, Brahman is real and the world is unreal. And that would be the consummation of your neti practice. But then, you know, if you understood some of these connecting points, the trail of breadcrumbs leading back into your own consciousness, where objects come from, how they connect to your senses, how the senses connect to the inner worlds, and how those connect into the mind, the great mind, the cosmic mind, and how that connects to Om, then you would have this much greater understanding and something to base a solid spiritual life on. For instance, say over here, if we want to go to this far right-hand corner, or left-hand corner for you, of this chart, you can see from top to bottom, solid objects, then gross elements, gross senses, thought objects, subtle elements, subtle senses, projected worlds, thought as concept, the ego-mind complex, intelligence itself, and then cosmic awareness, all ending in that Sanskrit letters, the matras, 3 matras of Om, plus Turiya, the 4th, all merging back into the word. which is even there in our Christian Bible, what Christ was trying to explain to John and so forth. So that, if you take it in that way, it's involution. So you're tracing something back to a source. In Sanskrit, the word's called utpatti, means to seek out origins of things. You want to know the infinite origins of things, and that's going to have to extend beyond just tracing physical origins. Say, to the beginning of all races along the Indus River in Mesopotamia or whatever, however you're thinking about it. Or maybe tracing all sources back to a Big Bang scientifically, but then not being able to explain what caused the Big Bang, and maybe limiting yourself only to physical origins. That possibly if you begin to understand particles of life force, particles of thought, particles of intelligence, and particles of existence like that happen in dreaming and deep sleep states, then you will begin to make these connections which places it all together, and eventually maybe place it all together into Brahman. See, there's beautiful songs that even describe that, if you want to talk about non-dual songs. For instance, Jo Kucha Hai So Tu Hai Tuj Se Hamne Dil Ko Lagaya. A beautiful practitioner who practiced both the Islam and the Vedantic path together, named Jafar, wrote that song. Jo Kucha Hai means I've finally understood that all this is you, O Lord. Everything exists in you. There is nothing else but you. So, had to put that realization that he got in deepest meditation into a song to express it to people. What other way, how else is he going to grab their attention so quickly and to convince them to take their own inner journey and start looking for that profundity? The truth is simple, yes, but we have to call it simply profound too. If it is infinite, it's going to take you on this journey of infinite wisdom and infinite knowledge. And basically, when we say follow the trail of breadcrumbs, those breadcrumbs may start out as atomic particles, and you begin to examine them as a scientist would do, but eventually you're going to find these breadcrumbs turn into life force particles. Man does not live by bread alone. And then all of a sudden you're going to find a particle that graduates you from this physical world into a world of your ancestors, prana. And then a particle there, if you trace it deeper, is going to go to the realm of your celestials, your angels, and then to a realm of your gods and goddesses, and all of a sudden all the deities and gods and goddesses not only are explained, but they're also connected to the different stages of consciousness, and they're also shown to be within you. So those three basic things we looked at here, the meaning of an object really is very profound, isn't it? So you could take the old style approach and say objects are just illusion, they're illusory, give them up. And that's one way to cut to the chase, no doubt. There have been many souls that did that, and many souls who had to do that and who succeeded in it. But I'm saying in this day and age right now, and by following origins, by tracing this trail of breadcrumbs inside, we can work our way from belief in solid objects and then begin to look into fire, air, ether, water, and earth as something other than just a producer, a sort of machine-like producer of plants and animals and flowers and oceans and rivers and so forth. And that all of these things have deep significance. Like I said, taking a candle out of all the objects in your house and making that something sacred and putting it on your altar and meditating on it, you've sort of taken a step, haven't you? You know? I mean, basically what you're doing is walking through a kind of savichara samadhi. All of this is beautiful. I have all these things. And so your mind is spread thin over all the things you have to do or all the things you own. It's a kind of samadhi, really. But then if you just take one of them, that'd be like nirvichara samadhi or nirvitarka samadhi. You just take one of them, it'd be like selecting one particle out of it and concentrating on it, or just concentrating on one particle of food, or just concentrating on one particle of wisdom in your mind that you cherish, that you like, some teaching you like. And therefore you're slimming down the whole spectrum, and that's leading you more towards a non-dual samadhi, a state of mind. That's basically what the mantra is about. It helps or affords us to turn all these waves on the ocean of our mind, chittavrittis, we call them, into just one big tidal wave. And hopefully maybe eventually just one, render the ocean of consciousness absolutely waveless. A sorrowless ocean of light. Peaceful, deep, clear, pure, inspiring, and full of bliss. Ananda. So it's a matter of graduation of consciousness, isn't it? It's all in the eye of the beholder, or if you want to take it a little deeper than the senses, it's all due to the quality of your consciousness. The quality of your consciousness is dull and dim, unawakened, then you still have not realized your Buddha nature, or your Atman within. And so you begin to take that journey, set your foot on it, and you begin to contemplate levels like that, you see. So then basically you're talking about connecting the elements to the senses, then the senses to thought objects. Basically, that would all of a sudden take you to a station where you're thinking, all of this got solidified by the power of my mind. Otherwise it would just be all random particles, but something solidified it. Something made it look like what it is, or the appearance of what it is. And then from thought objects you could go to the fact that you have subtle senses tonight in dream, and that you actually put together worlds and destroy them. Like Sri Ramakrishna used to say, like a kid builds sandcastles along the beach and then can't hardly wait for the tide to come in and just watch it all wiped out. You might have done that yourself as a child. Really, the building is only half the fun. The destruction is more fun, isn't it? So that's what I've been saying lately. Yes, know Lord Brahma, the creative power in you. Know Lord Vishnu, the sustaining power in you. But don't forget to worship Lord Shiva, the destructive or destroying power in you. How to dissolve things. You do it every night in sleep. You dissolve the worlds of name and form. Then you don't know who's doing it yet. You don't know the who of who's doing it. I think maybe the mind's just shutting down and what's left is a void. But the teaching is, avoid the void. Annihilate nihilism. Put death in its own grave. Don't look for God in the world, look for the world in God. You see, these are ways of taking phrases and turning them in on themselves. And in that same way, you're going to have to turn the process of evolution back into the process of involution. We've been talking too much about evolution and getting lost in it, and we're going further and further out. So far out that now we're talking about particles that change at a billionth of a second. That's the changing sands of Maya. We found them. Okay, great, give them up now. The conclusion is they change all the time, and very quickly. You couldn't ask one of those particles to get a life, because a billionth of a second is not very long. You know? But you could look inside and ask your own intelligence to get a life, because that's everlasting. That's what Christ called eternal life. That's where you want to be. Well, let the shifting sands do what they will, but living on the desert is no fun. That's why you seek an oasis. An oasis has everything you need. Water, food. So meditate on these things as solid objects and then render them into their origins. They came out of your mind. All food came out of your mind. You're sustaining yourself by producing food. Nature is just the agent, the material cause. But the impetus behind nature turns it into food. You can trace food right on back to rain and trace rain back to the scriptures, the God of rain, and then trace that back to sacrifice that the rain god's doing, so that the rain comes. When people see rain, they think, great, there's going to be food. If you don't think that, then you've lost a connection between water and earth, see? Or you're taking it for granted or something. But if you were an avadutta, or someone who wanted to see the truth of origins of things, you'd meditate on the fact of rain falling. and clouds. And you wouldn't end up just being a weatherman, see, and broadcasting about constant change all the time. You'd know the source of the thing. To know the source of the thing isn't just to know a cloud. The cloud came from the thought cloud. You see. The cup came from the thought cup. Rain came from the thought water. And that you can trace all the way back to the cosmic mind, cosmic awareness, you see. All of those, the 5 great elements, Pancha Mahabhutas they're called, 5 great elements, exist way back in the cosmic mind of God as a thought. So let there be water, or let there be light, sun, or let there be rain, is all back there inside that great mind, of which you're an integral part of. The wave is the integral part of an ocean because it's made of water, not because it's a wave. The wave is a passing phenomenon, isn't it? And billions of them will come and go, but water is there all the time. That's how they explain the difference between Brahman and Atman and body, that is body-mind mechanism, or psychophysical being or ego. Those are all the changing component, the non-eternal Brahman, if you want to be kind to it. But when you get to something like intelligence, you're talking about something that stays. It has a staying power, as we looked at that chart, you see. It has an all-pervading power, it has a withdrawing power, a dissolving power in it, it has a projecting power, and it has all those other elements in it that show it up to be something everlasting, something eternal. And so that's the nature of your mind, see. And therefore you must seek it out and find it. Seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened, and so forth. Those are wisdom particles or doorways, and you open them up here in the waking state, and you trace them into the deep dreaming state. That's what means subtle senses and projected worlds are coming out of your dream state. If you cut the silver thread tonight in sleep, then you will go into these other nadis, these other subtle nerves, and you will leave the physical realm and you will move into the realm of the ancestors, or the realm of the celestials, or the realm of the gods and goddesses, or I hope higher, into your Buddha nature, or into your Atman. And then there will be no more transmigration for you. See? Have no hope for me forevermore, for the world. I'm gone and I'm gone forever. As one of the great seers said. I've become a raindrop, I've fallen in the ocean. So if you cut that silver thread in sleep tonight, your dream will become real to you, and this will be the dream. And tonight, now that you have this connection to the body is so solid, tonight's dream seems like a figment of your imagination, and this seems real to you. But if you don't have a foundation here anymore, then that dream you had last night will seem like a reality to you, and this will seem like the dream. This will become fuzzy, so fuzzy that you won't remember it the next time you're born in a body, the next time you're hanging upside down being swatted on the butt, so you can utter your first mantra. Talk about 5 W's, there's a 6th you probably want to avoid. Because, like I said, it's good to see a baby, but it's not good to be a baby. See? So you should consider this act of rebirth as something to be considered very seriously. They asked Vivekananda, and I've said it before, I'll say it again, after he gave these teachings to us in the late 1890s and early 1900s, should a man be reborn then, Swamiji? Swamiji said, I certainly hope he will not. Not until he can do so in full consciousness. So, how many of us, for how long, have been missing that boat to be born in full consciousness? And here's our opportunity. And it's done by tracing these origins. Everything has a meaning. There's no such thing as serendipity or coincidence or randomness or luck or good fortune. Even destiny, that seems a little far-fetched to us. We're talking about dharma. We're talking about swadharma, our highest purpose. And if you talk words like that amongst the seers, they'll sit up and give you some attention. Well, will you explain that to me? What do you mean by that, you see? And that's how these teachings have been born, by such discussions. How to present them our founder, Lex Hixon, when he was passing away, I was told that one of the last things he said, and they asked him, "What do you do here, laying on your bed, just before the body's going to drop?" He said, "Well, two things. I think about food, and I think about how to make these teachings more accessible to people. These teachings I've learned in my life." So, he's already thinking about coming back. Right? Coming back in full consciousness of what he learned. Even in the Gita, Sri Krishna says, a yogi just, when he drops the body, he picks up the thread of his yoga in the next lifetime. So this is a matter of Smriti. Remember the divine Gyanamatra? It's got that cell wall that's made of retentive memory. Smriti. That's been honed in this life by studying the scriptures, because that reminds you that you're an eternal being. It reminds you that all of this has a connection. It reminds you of how to follow that trail of breadcrumbs philosophically, intellectually, and spiritually back to the source of things, so that you come back with that knowledge in your next lifetime. You drum it into your head. If you drummed in bad habits, like I heard news last night that one of my friends out of my youth passed away. And somebody wrote me and said, "Now our thoughts are on his wife." And I wrote him back and said, "No, put your thoughts on that soul. That soul has 7 days in which to see the light of Brahman. It's called a bardo. And if he doesn't, he has 14 more days after that to try and take a rebirth in a higher world. And if he fails that, he has 21 days after that to examine his past lifetime and see what he did and how he can do it better so he'll return again." It's a teaching of at least one of the schools of Buddhism. It's a whole month the soul has to wonder, basically. So while it wonders, we should wonder how to save it. We should put our mind on it, on that soul, and say, "Friend, see that light in the distance? Move towards it. Try and move towards it. That's good for you." And if it can't, if it begins to have thought objects, thought concepts appear in its mind, and it sees the body of a woman, or the body of a bird, or the body of a man, or a vulture, or whatever, then basically you want to say, "Don't go there. Don't go there. See all those rainbow worlds around you that are beyond the physical, that are beyond your ancestors? Try and take a birth there. You're a bird. Perch in one of those trees." You see? So over a period, this is called guiding a soul. It's not so much the art of dying the way the Western artists, Western authors have put it. It's more a science of spirituality, where the illumined soul who has been through this process before actually guides the soul inwardly. And that's based on the fact that it has subtle senses, right? If you think your dream senses are just figments of your imagination, then you don't know the connection between everything you did in dream and how it got manifested out here. Because this is the manifestation of that, not the other way around. It came from inside out. It's just that most people, and some very intelligent ones, have now proposed that the outside is all that exists, and there is no inside. This is preposterous. It doesn't make sense. So, avoid the void, annihilate nihilism. Atheism and agnosticism, they're a fine start. But you know better. You know that there's intelligence in you and in all things. The turtle can teach you, the tree can teach you, the bird can teach you. Sri Ramakrishna had dozens of bird teachings, all about spirituality. He wasn't talking about different varieties of birds or bird watching. Or how birds are the terror of statues. The problem with birds. He's talking about using them as a metaphor. Like, for instance, no matter how high a bird soars, it has to come to rest on a tree eventually. So no matter how sore you go in your meditations, you're going to have to come back to this perch, this tree called the body-mind mechanism. I say, basically, if you knew when you left the tree and began to soar, if you took account of all the levels of awareness you went through in your soaring, and you took account of them in reverse on your way back to the tree, then you'd be a knower of the cosmology. And if you're a knower of cosmology, you can go on to philosophy. And if you know philosophy, you can go on to spirituality. There's a difference between religion and spirituality. One's a matter of moral and ethics, thou shalt not kill. But the other's a matter of truth, thou cannot kill. Because the soul's never born. So it can't die. That should have been your first realization about being amongst the world of solid objects and forms. That this too is eternal. And here it is right here, this little being in the tree, let's see, is saying to itself, Purnamadaha, Purnamidam, Purnat Purnamudachyate, Purnasya Purnamadaya, Purnameva Vishishyate. Purna, Purna, Purna. It means full. Everything is full, full. So you started off seeing things as empty. You end up seeing it all as full. You started off having to see things empty. Why? Because you believed that the forms themselves were real. And you were laboring under a misapprehension, a misconception. So you clarified that, and when you clarified it, then you saw Brahman come through it. Not as the object, not as the form, not as the name, but as the essence. And that's what the essence tree is, see? There's the difference between the external tree, the appearance tree called solid tree, the internal tree, the atomic particle tree, and the transcendent tree, the Buddha nature tree, or the Atman tree. Those are three levels. Very distinct levels in your own consciousness. So he's saying, from the infinite, the finite has come. But being infinite, only infinite remains. Isn't that beautiful? That is, from the thought tree, the forest has come. Yet being a part of that infinite amount of trees in your mind, this external forest has manifested itself. It has come from that. It has come from inside of you. The kingdom of heaven was within you. My Father's mansion has many chambers. All knowledge lies within you. There are so many ways that has been said by different great beings. They want you to trace it back to the word, basically. So this is where you're going on this particular trajectory. You start out with gross prana, energy, psychic prana kicks in, and then finally you're at the level of chit shakti. Chit shakti, one of those great facets of the cell itself, right there. The force of intelligence. You can use the force of your intelligence, you can let it diminish and just wither away, or you can put it on physical things and become a great scientist or a great professor or a great knowledgeable person. But we say that the greatest use, the best utilization for the force of intelligence is to place it inside and transgress these, transcend these realms of name and form. Even the thought realms. See? So basically that's why you go on, inward, further inward, to higher and deeper climbs and times, through the concept to the ego-mind complex itself to intelligence. And when you reach intelligence, you find that vibrating particles. If you were to split an atom of matter, you release a great power for the destruction of humanity. But if you were to split one of those jnana matras, it's an implosion of insight for the greatest wisdom of all living beings. The seers have imploded many of those jnana matras and have then come forward and presented them through emanation. It's a transformation that's going out as they sit and talk. They must be in some other different realm. See? Even the Roman and Greek philosophers said the body is not a location for the soul. They knew the soul was somewhere else, but not in the body. So this Atman is transcendent of time, space, and causality. It belies and transcends name and form. Nama, Rupa, Desha, Kala, Nimitta. Those are the 5 things that you have to contemplate. Name and form, time, space, and causality. And when you get to causality, you've reached karma. Not just the karma that happens when 2 objects collide together and let's see what happens. That kind of physics, you see. But metaphysics, and beyond metaphysics, then transphysics. The psychic prana, when it kicks in, you're talking about insight, deep insight, wisdom. That's where revelation comes from. The revelations have come from the psychic prana. It's like a great dragon bird, Garuda, we call him, so that carries thought, this great energy, carries thought deep, deep inward to these other realms within you. And you're riding it. See? All these movies about training your dragon, you should go back to the original dragon, the Garuda bird himself, and tame him. You see? They all want you to tame your prana, because if you don't tame your prana, then the prana that flows through the eyes is fastening on sights. The prana that flows through the tongue is fastening on tastes. Prana that flows through the ears is fastening on sounds, music and so forth. And touch, fastening on objects, see. So if you control your prana, you control everything, because prana is the addiction of all addictions. There is nothing more addicting than life force. Think about it. Life force is what causes the drug addict to go after the drugs, because it's the force in the drug that's giving him the experience of having that elation from the drug. Without the prana, would any of that be possible? The substance itself wouldn't be possible. So this life force is a great addiction. Swami Vivekananda wrote about it in his Song of the Sannyasin. This thirst for life forever quench. It drags from birth to death, and death to birth the soul. They conquer all who conquer self. Know this and never yield. So to conquer the self in you is much better than getting addicted to this life force, which drags from birth to death and death to birth. This poor soul, see. Where seekest thou, he says. That freedom neither this nor that can give. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope, that drags thee on. So cease lament, let go thy hold, say Om. Say Om, say the word. And know thou art that. Om Tat Sat Om. Everyone say it. Om Tat Sat Om. You've already got it memorized. It's part of your divine smriti. Use it to enforce the cell wall of your divine remembrance of teachings like this. And make it retentive, like my teacher could recite the entire Bhagavad Gita in his 90s by heart. And tell you what it meant in English. So that's 2 languages, not just 1. That's 18 chapters filled with dozens of slokas by heart in your 90s. If there was a god of Alzheimer's, then he took one look at my teacher and went, I'm getting out of here. This guy's got smriti. Buko smriti there. I'm not going near there. Forgetfulness has no hold, has no existence. It's like darkness has no place near a sun. And so you meditate on the sun and darkness will go away. The sun is one of the great pratikas to meditate on. The ocean also, a great pratika. If somebody goes out wandering and they're just going to climb mountains and dive in oceans and so forth, they don't know what the 5 elements mean, what the 5 elements are saying to them. You have to go out and be with the ocean, study it, and get its essential meaning. What is it? That millions, trillions, an infinite amount of souls are rising all the time on the ocean of consciousness and falling back in, and nothing is happening. that's eternity. And that ocean is just telling me about my own consciousness, that I can take as many forms as I want and give them up, but I'm not going anywhere. Coming and going are all mere nonsense. Who said that? Swami Vivekananda. Coming and going are all mere nonsense. The soul never comes and goes. So that's your all-pervasive soul. All of these levels don't know it yet, but if you open up that intelligent particle, it has the secret for you. It will tell you that very secret. And it will tell you from lifetime to lifetime in case you go asmriti, in case you want to forget. Go running back and embrace nature, like the fish caught in the fisherman's net, sinking itself in the mud at the bottom of the lake, thinking it's safe. That's the soul caught in the grips of forgetfulness. It doesn't think that death will yank it out of its watery grave any minute, any second. And that's why people are brooding. That's why they fear. The greatest fear is death, that I die, that I lose all this. But what if you don't own anything to begin with? What if you know death to be an illusion? What if you've already put it in its own grave? Then where does brooding come from? Brooding comes from the curtain of nescience. It's like deep sleep tonight. You go past the waking and dreaming state, you see, and you get into this deeper cosmic intelligence. You've gone into deep sleep where there's no forms. It's one of 4 times when the human being knows it's formless. The first is deep sleep, and the second is death, because it gets a glimpse of the light and says, oh, that's my true nature. Whether I can make it there this lifetime or not, it's another matter. The third time is in a good meditation, where you go into a trance, as it were. And then finally samadhi. And that's where it goes away forever. The idea of coming and going is mere nonsense. If you've had samadhi like Swami Vivekananda had, then you've put the whole thing to rest. I am the self in all. So he says that again in his beautiful song, the song Sannyasin. I am the self in all. So I think we've taken apart this chart and chewed on it quite a bit and covered most of it. Just to end with that, this beautiful quote down here, which is a song again. I could sing it for you, but I'll just read this. O mind, this projected world is only a faint reflection of reality, consisting simply of earth, water, fire, air, and ether, arranging and rearranging with hypnotic beauty. By attempting to grasp reflected images, we cheat ourselves of true experience. Turn instead to the original and discover the treasure of delight. The original is you. You, who are at the hub of all of this. You, who are the author of the universe, of name and form. You, the formless reality, with infinite potential in you, stored within the intelligent cell. So, from the infinite, the finite has come, yet, being infinite, only infinite remains. That is, everything that has come out of you is also infinite, and since it's come from the infinite, it too is infinite. Don't you see endless clouds, endless trees, endless birds, endless waves? And so, immerse yourself in that mantram of infinity. There's a beautiful word called Ananda. Just change the D to a T, and you have the Sanskrit word for infinity. Ananta. That's infinity. So meditate on the infinite nature of everything. But don't forget to end up with your own infinite nature. From the infinite, the finite has come. So your intelligent cell, or even if it's been forgotten, if the cell walls become eroded, and you're not remembering yourself from lifetime to lifetime, even then you're manifesting everything out of the power of intelligence. And that's the problem, is that it's skewed intelligence. So the world you produce for yourself is full of suffering, it's full of pain, it's full of insensitivity to others, full of bad karmas. That's also projecting power of your intelligent self. That has become eroded over time and forgetful of the dharmic laws of existence. So we have a very precarious distinction there, don't we? Whether to be born in full awareness or forget our awareness and just be born. Let's look back on the intelligent cell in the remaining time we have here and take another facet of it. Isn't this fun? Basically, for 3 weeks now, we've been going on one chart showing these different petals of the lotus, all formed with Om. I think maybe we should probably say something about Om here itself, because we work our way back to the word eventually. The word was with God, means it was something separate, and then when it was God, it became God, and his word became the same thing. It's like saying the difference between savikalpa samadhi and nirvikalpa samadhi, or sampragyata samadhi and asampragyata samadhi, as they say in yoga. It's the difference between formlessness and the potential for form to spring into manifestation. Everything comes out of the word, just like waves come out of the ocean. So if we looked at the word in terms of matras, because we're talking about jnana matra, correct? Let's look then at this teaching on Om as far as the avastas, or realms of existence, go. Good to start out with a quote. Probably no one better to speak to us about Om than Gaudapada. Gaudapada was one of the superlative Advaita Vedantins. He was the teacher of Sri Shankaracharya, who made such a profound introduction of Advaita Vedanta back in 700 AD, sort of brought it back current to the world, this Advaitic path. And in fact, we were just listening to Swami Sheshananda on one of his lectures talk about when he thinks of Vivekananda, he thinks of Shankaracharya, how Shankaracharya refuted the distorted Buddhism of the time and brought back the Advaita Vedanta. In the same way, Vivekananda has come and stemmed the tide of materialism that was encroaching on India with these teachings of Advaita Vedanta. And so that's what, some 13 or 100 years later. From age to age I embody myself forth, Sri Krishna says, to destroy the old Dharma and resurrect the new Dharma, so to bring it back into the light of day, of the present day. So Gaudapada says here, there is one Paramatman, one Supreme Self, who is all-pervading, makes sense so far, which associates with its projections in different ways and in different states. The key word is associates, not identifies. What is considered enjoyable in these three abodes, that's A, U, and M, and the enjoyer present in these abodes, that's the Turiya, they who know these two as distinct from each other, though they enjoy and are never contaminated thereby. So, powerful quote from the Gaudapada Karika, which is the commentary on the Mandukyopanisad, which is of great merit and fame in both Eastern and Western philosophical circles. Gaudapada made a huge impression with that commentary. So, was he talking about these three abodes? He's taking Om and personalizing it for you. Here you see A, quality of pervading, U, quality of being, M, quality of merging. If you ask Vivekananda about it, then he would say how to pronounce the word Om, and if you utter the A, that's existence, right? That's the beginning, that's creating. And you hold the U out for a long time, that's this long quality of beingness, sustenance. And then if you close your lips in M, the M of Om, then you're dissolving the whole thing. And if you take that as one word that you speak, Dirgha Pranava it's called, the long recitation of the word Om, then it can happen in a minute, right? You take a minute maybe just to chant this long, but its significance is that this is how actually creation goes on. Creation, preservation, and destruction proceeds by these three phases. So when Gaudapada talks about these three abodes, he's talking about these three phases as aspects of your consciousness. You're not putting Om somewhere out in some distant planet or some distant world, and you're somehow trying to find it. It's emanating from your very navel. It's emanating from your very heart chakra. The heart chakra is called Anahata chakra. Anahata is a word for Om. So out of that, you hear it in the navel, probably not fully realized yet, but if you hear it coming out of the heart chakra, Om, and of course then leads to the throat chakra, then you're having a very high, deep, insightful meditation on the word Om. And you've probably connected the A, U, and M a long time ago, and it's beginning to be one reality to you. So in this case then, you see here, when I say he's making it sort of personalized to you, he's talking about this Jagrat, waking state, the Svapna, the dreaming state, and the Sushupti, the deep sleep state, as three states of consciousness that your awareness moves through. That is, it moves through them until it realizes they're all connected as one, and then it stops moving, and it owns the whole property then. Then you could say you're at Turiya. You see, here's Turiya, and Turiyatita. Turiya is this Shvara, they call it. I call it the one-eyed smile. It's this half moon with a dot. And you could probably just put up there, have a good day, and you kind of have a new version of the Shvara teaching. Basically, it says have a transcendent day, and in fact, go beyond all days and nights and have one eternal state of consciousness. That would be Turiya. And then you could even, the dot means Turiyatita, you could even go beyond the beyond. Gatam, Gatam, Paragatam. Some of the great souls have gone beyond the beyond, and to no concepts, no barriers, no limitations, a shoreless ocean of sorrowless light, no boundaries. So this is, in case you haven't realized, is how to meditate on the word, being such an important station of consciousness, because everything flows out of it. It's the primal vibration, the unstruck sound. So of all vibrational things, that's the one vibration that's the most subtle. In fact, subtle doesn't cut it. Causal would even have a hard time describing it. It's almost with God. It almost is God. The Word was with God and the Word was God. So it's so close to divine reality that meditating on it and it alone is enough for an aspirant. You don't have to take a mantra from a guru. You don't have to study the scriptures. This path of Om is enough for you, just to sit, contemplate it. But your contemplations will be richer, deeper, your awakening swifter and faster if you know the meaning of it. If you find a teacher to teach you the meaning of Om. As I'm doing here with this, then as Gaudapada did in the Mandukyopanisad, with 12 slokas to work with only, and wrote this beautiful commentary, everything from the firebrand, the appearance of the firebrand teaching, looks like there's a circle of fire in the sky, but it's all mayic, there's just one stick, there's just one fire there. It looks like a circle at night, right? So he calls it the firebrand, appearance of Maya. So he's got all these various teachings in that Karika, that commentary he did on these 12 slokas of the Upanishad, and they're reflected deeply in this teaching on Om. He wants you to know Om inside out, backwards, forward, upside down, and transcendent as well. So remember, as we're talking about studying the three matras, same word in our Jnana Matra, the three particles of Om, they're AUM. A stands for your waking state, and it is a quality of pervading. Looks like the cell had it right then, right? The pervading quality, Vyapakatma, is there in the pervading cell. Then talks about dreaming, swapna, dreaming state, the quality of being, because all form is there in the dream state first. So that's where you imagine yourself to be a form. Well, I'm taking on a form now. Well, here you did it in the waking state for 80 years, but you were dreaming it for many lifetimes before it actually happened. That is, you knew about yourself before you entered the fetus. You were a soul that fell under the idea of transmigration. You're going someplace. But we just said, remember, coming and going is all pure nonsense. It's a projection. So I guess the projecting power, I guess the cell has that too. You see? It's just a matter of whether I can project myself in pure consciousness or I project myself out of ignorance. Or maybe partial consciousness. Because, as you know, there's many very intelligent people here in the world who could out-talk us, out-think us, out-debate us. But we're not calling them seers, are we? Enlightened souls, luminaries, and so forth. And they have a class of their own. When they listen, when they speak, we listen and we believe. It's a matter of faith comes forward then. Which is also, by the way, what's something I want to get to, the Guru Bhakti portion of this cell. They're in every intelligent cell. In other words, in every memory you have, there's a memory of your teacher. And he's your great teacher, for sure. He's your Krishna, he's your Christ, he's your Buddha, and so forth. But there's also this line of teachers that have come in succession from those great beings, and they're also a part of your divine memory. And you probably find yourself to them in this lifetime because of your remembrance, smriti, of that teacher teaching you before. Hopefully you sat up and paid attention when you had that opportunity and realized the truth in this very life. You took this opportunity. I was all ears for my teacher. I didn't miss a word. I sat like this through his entire lecture. I never was sleepy. I was never restless. I listened to everything he said. I can say that in all honesty. Whenever I was in his presence, I was perfectly tuned into him. When I got out of his presence, sometimes I wavered a little. You see, you have to go back again to your teacher, because he knows how to keep your torch lit. And if your torch gets dimmed or goes out, you go back and get it lit. So guru, disciple, or guru-shishya relationship is of supreme importance in India. In all traditions in India. It's indispensable. Very, very few souls, if any, ever get to truth without a guru. And so you could say, well, what about Ramana Maharshi? He didn't have a teacher. Did you see his past lifetimes? What about Buddha? Well, I know of at least 4 or 5 teachers. I can name them. 2 of them were Samkhya Yoga teachers who taught him before he got nirvana. Sri Ramakrishna, our own great master. Many teachers. A tantric teacher, an Advaita teacher, a teacher for Islam. So, very important, this Guru Bhakti component. I'm just taking a little aside here for it, because probably next week in our live streaming class we will talk about the Guru Bhakti element of the retentive memory, of how we remember our teachers and the teachings. It's not just a teacher, because we started off saying today, reality is really a principle, right? Not a personality. So when we remember the teaching, the teacher, we should be remembering his teachings or her teachings. My teacher's teacher was a woman, Sri Sharda Devi. And Sri Ramakrishna's wife gave my teacher sannyas, and then he gave me mantra. So I think of the teacher of my teacher, I think thinking of a woman, an enlightened soul who took a female form, and whom 4.5 million souls today in the world call Holy Mother. Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother. So, very important, this element of Guru Bhakti, and I came to it by talking about the personal nature of this. So if you're talking about the dream state, then you're talking about a part of your consciousness that you're probably not taking into account very much each day. You've heard of lucid dreaming. Now people are getting into the idea of lucid dreaming and so forth. Basically, it's a start, but the whole purpose in my tradition for recognizing dreaming as it happens to you is to recognize the dreamer, not the dream itself. Didn't I just say that here you should be the witness of all phenomena and not the phenomena. Well, the same problem presents itself to you in the dream tonight. You forget who you are, and you become all eyes, all ears, all taste, all sight, all feeling, and you want to experience the dream state. And you have 5 subtle senses to do so. So you lose yourself in the dream, don't you? It's no different than the waking state. Which is why Ramana Maharshi, and I just mentioned him, said, this is dream number 1, and tonight you're going into dream number 2. He actually designated the 2 states of your consciousness, both as dreams. So this dream state you encounter tonight, wake up from it. That's the whole point. Have you ever done that? All of a sudden said, hey, I think I'm dreaming. I think I'll wake up. And you did. And that's an enlightened move. To say, I am the dreamer, you see, is to wake up. That's the whole purpose in my tradition. It's called enlightenment. And you realize that everything is now a projection. Sankalpa matra. It's a projection of your own mind, of your own intelligence, all the way down to the physical earth, to iron, silver, gold, especially gold and silver. What a dream. What a dream that's turned into, yes? As we just sang, Namaja Panekyum Chordiya Ramanam. See, chant the name of Ram. He's the owner of the whole universe. Why are you seeking after wealth, which is transitory? One Swami once told me in that accord, he said, you know, I think basically if I were to choose between the 2 dreams, waking and dreaming, I'd choose the waking because I could put $1 million in the bank here today in Seattle or Portland, and it'll probably still be there tomorrow if the greedy bankers didn't do something with it. But if I put $1 million in my dream bank tonight, it's most probable that when I go to sleep tomorrow night, it won't be there anymore. So I think I'll put my trust in this solid dream, you see, more than the waking dream. Of course, he was joking in a sense, but it's a good point. That dream tonight is just as wavery and built on shifting sands. It's built on a different particle, isn't it? It's built on a chit akasha particle. It's built on a particle of thought. That is akin to your intelligent particle, but if you don't understand the connection between chit and chit, thought and consciousness, then it's not going to do you any good. You're going to have to make that connection that your thought isn't just fantasy, it's not just wondering, it's not just dreaming, it's not just imagining, but it's based in a deeper reality. Where is the ultimate form out of which all dream comes? Where is the primal vibration? Where is the word? I'm forgetting that in my sleep. However, when I go into sleep tonight, the word takes me over. If I remain conscious, like if I do my mantra as I fall asleep, I can almost hear the word come and go hum, and just take over my consciousness and break it down to no form, to bliss. And when I wake up tomorrow morning, just before my consciousness revisits the senses from wherever it's been, I hear Om go, oh, you see, in reverse, Om stops humming for me. Try that in your meditations and in your waking and dreaming phases of your consciousness based on the knowledge of the word. Those are mokihanas. So you see, mokihana is a flower, right? So, but mokes are like these really motorcycle guys who are beefed up and will kurang your alis if you're not careful. So we call them mokihanas. They're really flowers underneath. So A, U, and M, very important. Now let's look deeper. A, when you're in the A state, they call you Vishva. You're the cognizer of the external, Vishva. The quote here from Gaudapada, residing in the right eye, it experiences the gross world by means of the mind and sense organs in the waking state. So when you're in the state of A, you're the Vishva, you're the cognizer of the external. Why are they telling you this? because they want you to become master of the external, not slave to it. You should be master of your waking state. Isn't that all what we're trying to do? So maybe if I meditate, I'll become more masterful. Or maybe if I study the scripture, I'll become more masterful. See? Or if I do prayer and penitence or austerity or japa, I'll become more masterful. You're trying to master your waking state. Basically what you're saying is, remove all false prophets. Remove all pretenders to the throne. And reinstall myself there as the master. I'm not going to have any hopes or fears or expectations for any other thing other than myself to free me here in this waking state. Nothing can free me but me. And that's because I am free, ultimately. So that's why they want you to become the master, you see. And if you go to the second, the you, the quality of being, cognizer of the internal, taijasa, they call you taijasa, if you are in the dreaming state. For you, the quote there is, you're residing in the mind, you enjoy subtle realms in the dream state. And basically this is heaven. Whether you're in the body or outside the body, this is heaven. You're going into dream state and enjoying subtle realms. If you're doing it more consciously and you're visiting the realm of the ancestors and they're in heaven, then you see the various deities that are involved in heaven. You see Indra, the lord of the gods, you see presiding over all the gods, or you see the celestials or the angels and so forth. These are all made out of particles of your own thinking consciousness. You've fashioned them. And they are fashioning you too. And together you're fashioning the heaven realm as if it were real. Just like all of us here, 7 or 8 billion people, are holding this realm to be real. The problem is, none of us go into deep sleep all at the same time. Half the world sleeps while the other half wakes. So there's a perfect plan here. You see. If everyone went into deep sleep at the same time, then somebody would get the bright idea, say like Lord Buddha, that maybe this world is unreal, that it goes away in deep sleep. And that's a matter of my consciousness, not a matter of evolution. Because wasn't evolution going on, apparently, when human beings weren't here on Earth? You see, nature was here. But nature was only here because the mind was preparing itself a body to come into nature. And that's a questionable act to wait that long. To crawl out of the slime, develop legs, evolve through a bunch of species and so forth. What a dream. A dream that is. But you were always the noble soul. You were never a chimpanzee or a paramecium. You're always the noble soul waiting for your chance to manifest in that very realm that you created, that you dreamed up in conjunction with millions of other souls. Somebody said America in your dream state. Thousands of people went and said, I'll go there. Let's create it. Let's, by force of will, let's make it happen. And we'll call it freedom. In a sort of cross-eyed way. Call it freedom. Well, it gets only more subtle, that is, the word would be causal, when you go to the M of Om, the pragya state. Cognition amassed, they call it. You're a cognition amassed, one undifferentiated mass of pure conscious awareness. The quote is, residing in the heart, it experiences the bliss of pragya in deep sleep. Pragya is intelligence. Sometimes they even use pragya for consciousness itself. Right below there, another quote. The non-perception of duality is common to both pragya and turiya. Pragya, though, is bound by deep sleep, which does not exist in turiya. So if you get beyond the Om, that is A, waking state, U, dreaming state, and M, deep sleep state, to the turiya, which is totally disconnected from these 3 states, then you realize the self in all. When we teach the children this, we have a big empty room and lots of dominoes. we set up an Om sign made of dominoes. Then they can hardly wait to knock them over. See, there's that worship of Shiva going on in them, even if they don't know it. They go, oh boy, sandcastle time, but this is even better. So basically, there's this big Om made out of standing dominoes. Finally, hopefully one of the kids gets the go, you see, and taps that first domino, and the whole waking, dreaming, and deep sleep state disappears, right on out to Swapna and Sushupti. And then we ask them, what's the result? The phenomena is over, the fun is over. What did you learn? We learned that Turiya remains untouched, that the fourth state remains untouched by waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, that Brahman is ever perfect, and the worlds of name and form come and go constantly. Good, very good. Let's see. And one of my students told me, why don't you just, knock it all down. Knock it all down, start from that position, as if nothing exists and everything has to be constructed. So if you do that, it would be, involution and evolution would be nicely illustrated, you see. So let's look at Turiya then, because it's where we're headed as far as this Advaitic class is concerned. He says, that is Gaudapada, the syllable A leads to Vishva, U leads to Taijasa, M leads to Pragya. There is no course for that which has no syllabic portions. When the adorable seer knows the three abiding qualities in these three abodes, that great sage enters Turiya and becomes worthy of worship. So, it's like we said before, if those three matras of Om are left unconnected, then you just wander from waking to dreaming to deep sleep, never knowing yourself and never knowing how they connect or why they connect. But if you connect these in your study and in your meditation afterwards, and you see the inherent oneness in them, you connect these three states of A, U, and M, then you realize, you have a grounds for realizing Turiya, the transcendent reality. Connect them together, and Turiya is the result. Now, I thought I'd put here quickly, in a short time remaining, we can finish this chart, Gaudapada's way of meditating on Om. As I just said, Om is one of the probably the very best way of meditating, even if you don't have a teacher or have not studied much. He says, know that to comprehend the pranava is to attain Brahman. That is, the Word is with God and the Word was God. So if you find the Word humming inside of you and you can identify with it, meditate on it, then that is Brahman. Then the Word that was with God becomes the Word that was God, or that is God. God and His Word become the same. Sri Ramakrishna said, when I first meditated on Om, I saw all the worlds coming out of it and all the worlds going back into it, all in an eternal moment. There was no time passing. So Om is throwing up the worlds and dissolving them all the time, just like you do in a 24-hour period. All the time, only more immediately. What it really means is there is no creation, preservation, and destruction going on. That's a tempest in a teapot going on in two hands called projection and withdrawal, and creation, preservation, destruction of worlds in space and time over millennia, much longer periods of time. 4,320,000,000 year cycles is going on as an appearance inside of those two great hands of projection and withdrawal. Projection meaning what appears and then what gets taken back to its essence. The great cosmic projection we're talking about, which begins to introduce you to that level of the reality called cosmic mind and Om. So know that he wants you to start off on the non-dual, right? Know that if you concentrate on Om, that is Brahman. Next, envision the pranava as the beginning, middle, and end of everything. AUM also means beginning, middle, end. AUN means Father, Mother, and Guru. AUM means so many different triple teachings. So you can connect all the Triputis into Om. Then contemplate Om quarter by quarter then meditate upon nothing else but Om. Master the A, master the U, master the M, and render it all into one indivisible state called Turiya. This is going to take some power of meditation. It's also going to take some power of confirmation, of affirmation, and then of realization. That is, the cell has all of that, right? Has all of those qualities. So use your intelligent cell to coalesce all of that, because it's starting out in an inherently, intrinsically unified condition. That it's broken apart into threes, or he says here fours, is just a matter of that projecting power. It's your business then to congeal it again. Bring it back to its state of origin. Oneness, we call it. Homogeneity. Ether. If you meditated on ether, it holds everything, doesn't it? I mean, I can move this and I'm displacing air, but am I displacing ether? Ether is undisplaceable. So ether holds everything and it doesn't change or move. If the physical ether does that, imagine what the pranic ether is capable of. What the ether of the mind, where your thoughts are held. That's a space too. And what the ether of your intelligence holds. And what to speak of Om itself, what that holds. So meditation on ether is a very high level of meditation. And it's one that we're missing in the Western culture. I'd say those two things. Not looking after that which lives by, that man does not live by bread alone. We're not looking into that prana. And then here, we're not looking into the five ethers. We're thinking there's just one ether, an ether of objects. But there's also an ether of energy, there's an ether of thought, there's an ether of intelligence, and an ether of spirit. And those are called the worlds of my ancestors, the angels and celestials, the gods and goddesses, and the Trinity. So we're not connecting the particles to the worlds to the deities, the A, the U to the M. We're not making connections. Our intelligent particle will make connections if we awaken it up. Bring it out, dust it off, nourish it with some good food, see, so the cell wall becomes strong, and then use it to realize. So that's an important point. Contemplate Om quarter by quarter. Then fix the mind on the blessed syllable Om and destroy all fear. Abai pade pran shopechi ami abai pade pran shopechi. Basically, this is the Varda mudra. Be fearless. Abai means fearlessness. So that's important to your meditation. Meditate on fearlessness itself. Come to know the Om as the Lord set in the heart of all, and grieve no more. Sounds like fear and grief have no place in you. Then they must be kicked out of the human mind. Boot them out. Fear and grief got to go. Know Om as the lower Brahman and Atman as the higher Brahman. Sometimes they describe that as two sticks to rub together. Om and Brahman. You get fire, right? Contemplate on Om as the lower part of Brahman and Brahman as the supreme part of Brahman. Then perceive the Om as being devoid of both inside and outside, as unique and immutable. Sounds a lot like our sloka, right? Render the internal and the external into one indivisible reality. Because that's what it is. But you're keeping them separate. You're keeping these three particles separate. You haven't seen them, coalesced them, and known them as one. So you are keeping the divisions between these. Just like people keep divisions between races, between cultures. Hang out long enough in that kind of division and then there's war. There's misunderstanding. Finally, know the Om as portionless, yet possessed of infinite portions. That is what is known as realization. So this is Gaudapada's basic summation of the Karaka as I saw it. These points on how to meditate on the pranava, or Om. Now, as we are running out of time and only have a minute or so left, I must just invite you next Sunday to this live streaming at the same time, and we will be going through other teachings of the pranava, that is Om, and also how it connects with Guru Bhakti and some other great teachings that I have in store for you. Each of these petals has another chart or two that can correlate with this, so we'll be tuning in on that next Sunday with this continuing Jnana teaching inside of this greater umbrella of Advaita Vedanta. So please join us then. You're welcome. Your friends are welcome. So here, let's end with the chant. Om Asato, Om Asato Ma Sadgamoya, Tamaso Ma Joytir Gamoya, Mrichor Ma Amritam Gamaya, Abira Bira Mayeti, Rudrayate Dakshinamukam, Tenamam Pahinicham, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from darkness to light, from lower truth to higher truth, from the unreal to the real, and from the illusion of death to eternal life. Reach us through and through, O Lord and Mother, with thy sweet and benign presence. Om, peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.
Sarva Mangalam Doshalem